Pledge of Allegiance, which I haven't even seen.
C, one.
Oh, that's good on top. Yep. We're Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Anderson, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See, I was going to do that to my niece last week, but I didn't see her until after you did it. Now I get to pick on you. All right. We are at item 4, consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second.
Is there anything in consent agenda that needs separate consideration or there's questions on? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 5, project update. Is Dan good?
Dan is here.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, Dan.
This was the first time I didn't have to sit in the front row. It was all taken. Do a quick project update out at Mill Valley. Our brickwork is complete, as well as salvaging the old Mill Valley stone that was on the building that was demolished. It looks pretty cool. Roofing is ongoing between the raindrops. We did pour the last of our slab on grade today, so all of our mechanical work overhead can continue on concrete. Getting to the site, about 2 or 3 weeks we're going to see the last trailer leave so we can finish up the rest of the site work on the hard surface play lot and back, as well as finishing up all the landscaping work. Relocated equipment will be coming the first week of June, so we're getting ready for that. Out at the middle school, we'll be putting the last of our floor down this week. We're finishing base and whatnot next week, but all of the floor will be down by the end of the week, along with dropping the rest of the ceiling tiles. We'll be putting in the last of our doors and hardware, and continuing to continue with the punch lists throughout the building. I think every Wednesday afternoon. Some of the new tech ed equipment has started to show up. I think we got a few saws and whatnot today, so it's exciting to see that all come together. Friday we paved both bypass lanes, got the binder down. We'll be topping those off tomorrow, as well as paving the emergency entrance drive. And by the end of this month we should have the rest of the pavement done on all the lots throughout the new middle school site. So things are wrapping up. Hoping to start our final inspections by the end of next week to get that going, and shouldn't have any issues with substantial completion for June 15th. So we're targeting, and we poured our first footing June 12th of last year. So just kind of right in there, about 1 year. Country Meadows, we had a kickoff meeting with a lot of our subcontractors last week, so we're gearing up to get that remodel started June 4th. And we're still continuing with no lost time accidents to date, and we're about $600,000 left in construction contingency. So on schedule, under budget.
Any questions? What were they doing up at the middle school this weekend? They were doing some excavating or something off the end of the access road.
They were stoning the access drive this weekend.
Saturday.
I think they may have been paving a few patches in the parking lot, but I think that was more
No, it was in the
Friday.
back. I couldn't hear. It was no big deal.
Oh, we were mucking out the ponds.
Oh, okay.
So some of the swales going to the ponds kind of let loose over the winter, so we were kind of cleaning out the ponds and re-establishing those slopes. And they did that on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
You'll see the additional project notations for the pool, bleachers, and turf. With regard to transitioning schools, we do have a date now for Mill Valley's open house. That will be Monday, September 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. The community open houses wrapped up this last week with Muskego Elementaries on Friday, and Country Meadows was last Thursday. So great turnout, and quite sad too, to kind of just experience the reality of some of that shift. But lots of hope and a sense of positivity also emulating from those gatherings. So it was a good opportunity to say goodbye and to look forward to the future. Any questions about any of those items related to the projects? Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6, student representation. We have 2 people here.
Oh, Colin is here.
So, this is Colin Wolf, who will be replacing me next year. He's an excellent young man, a gentleman and a scholar. He'll probably do a much better job than I did.
Thank you. So hello, my name is Colin Wolf, and I'm super excited to start. We had exec retreat last week, so I'm just starting to get into the swing of things. So I'm very excited.
Great, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Any updates at the school? Anything going on exciting?
There's not too much going on. We're wrapping up with exams pretty quick here. AP exams were mostly last week, a couple makeups this week. Everybody's pretty excited about that, now that it's over. Well, I got.
All right, moving on to item 7, public forum. This is your opportunity to bring anything to the school board's attention that we need to have brought to our attention. Going once? Twice? Item 8, superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, so we have some students here who are part of a competition that we're going to recognize, and actually, if you want to come up and just provide us with a little background of what this competition was.
Okay, I think it's about the 7th year now that AP Biology has been partnering with UW-Milwaukee's SEPA program, which is Student Education Partnership Award Program. Through this program, we do 2 modules that they've developed. They both are meant to bring relevant, authentic science into the classroom. And so one of the ones that we do early in the year is using zebrafish as a model for human development. They test toxicology, various different kinds of toxicants that could be in the environment that may impact development. And so they use zebrafish as a model for that. And then later in the year, we test the impact of lead on fathead minnow behavior. And some of the stuff that we're doing is, it's all very inquiry-based, and some of it is very original, like the work that we did this year with the fathead minnows. We tested the impact of lead on their reproductive behaviors, and then we also added a second independent variable where we were testing the impact of temperature stress as well. To our knowledge, that has never been done before, so it's truly original research that they've done. So the students have then a choice when they write up these, they can either write up either module, and they can either write a paper or a poster that then they submit to UW-Milwaukee. And UW-Milwaukee holds a scientific conference with, I don't know how many schools were there. It was something like 20 schools. 550 students were there. And these papers and these posters get judged. There were 142 papers submitted, I think, and the paper that one of these groups wrote was one of the top 3 papers, and they presented to the conference up on stage, PowerPoint, 550 students there, amongst various other faculty. And then the individuals here that had posters as well, the posters are also scored on I guess, various different levels, and these are the highest commendation posters also. Okay, that's.
And so we have 3 groups here, right, that were awarded, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So President Petfowski will read the, actually, why don't you all come up, and then as your name is called, you can come in and receive your presentation, your certificate. So why don't you come and stand like over here, just.
So we have certificates for each of you. I'm just going to read the first one, and then I'll just call your names after that. Certificate of Appreciation. The School Board of the Muskego Norway School District hereby commends, and in this case Angie Lee, for entering the Science Partnership Award competition through the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. The conference was attended by 625 students from 15 schools in the metropolitan area. Angie is to be commended for her team research, which earned highest honors among 138 papers submitted. The research project titled "The Effects of Lead and Temperature Stress on Fathead Minnow Sexual Behavior and Characteristics" was presented to all 625 students who attended the conference. Through this achievement, Angie has brought honor not only to herself, her family, but to the Muskego Norway schools and community as well. The Muskego Norway School Board wishes Angie success in her future education and career endeavors, and it's signed this day by the board officers. Angie, congratulations. We have one for Haley. Congratulations. And Ellen. Congratulations. And then the next group was, the award was for outstanding with, outstanding with special commendation, and the team project was the effects of temperature, same team project, the effects of temperature on lead on male fathead minnows. And the first one is for Sophia. Okay. And then Ashley. Jordan. And Olivia. And then Caitlin Martin, the award was outstanding and special commendation, and the team project was the effects of lead on temperature on fathead minnow reproduction. Caitlin?
She's not here.
Justina?
She's not here.
Kate?
She's not here.
And Sarah?
Make sure it's.
And then the last one, the award was Director's Choice Award for artwork submissions. Rachel?
No? Okay.
All right. Well, congratulations.
So do you want to come and share?
Yes.
Can you get us, or do we need to row? Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thanks for coming tonight.
Where's our table?
Welcome to your house right away.
I'm trying to save you some stuff.
He's in this front.
Oh, it's this thing.
Thank you for coming.
And Colin, we have a certificate of appreciation for you. And it says the school board of the Muskego Norway School District hereby commends Colin, is it Dido or Dale? Didio, all right, he wasn't needed. For his service to the school board as student council representation during the 2017-18 school year. The board thanks Colin for attending school board meetings to represent the students of Muskego High School. In his role, Colin has reported student activities, events, community service project, and has acted as a liaison to the student body on behalf of the Muskego Norway School Board. Colin has served effectively by demonstrating leadership and knowledge while giving of his personal time to represent his fellow classmates. The Muskego Norway School Board hereby commends Colin for his service and wishes him well in his future academic and career endeavors, and it's signed by the board officers with today's date. Congratulations.
Didn't say anything about a sense of humor.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Thanks.
right, that brings us to our technology report to the board, and Tony.
Hi, everyone.
Hello?
So you can follow along with the PDF version in Board Docs, or I'll be presenting a more live version up at the front. So actually, Dr. Thompson, could I have you catch maybe one set of lights?
sure.
Just from an observation standpoint.
No holograms or anything? This is
I
a
know,
technology
yeah, I know.
report.
What kind of technology is this? I need a VR headset to do it, so.
Yeah, the librarians brought those in.
That's right. So they're part of the technology department. So
Okay.
take a look at it. Okay, so here we go. Step one, measuring the work. So just a kind of an overview of what our techs are kind of working through on a daily basis. You see that our urgent ticket response times are now close to almost 10 hours total in response, and that clock is running 24/7, which is a pretty important thing. Our goal was to reach a 24-hour response time to these tickets. So we started in 15-16 at 45 hours and 16 minutes. 16-17 was 35 hours and 50 minutes, and now we're at 11 hours and 54 minutes. So a pretty substantial drop in terms of our response time. Something we're very excited about. We meet regularly with the tech team. Our goal is to not only determine what the needs of the district are, but also to review our data. This is a direct work of that data and our observation. We send these reports to our own department on a monthly basis to review.
So what was the big change? I mean, that's dramatic.
Yes. I'd say the biggest change that happened is we started reviewing the data.
Okay.
Started making it a priority to understand that we have to manage this well and also use this as feedback on ourselves. So if you look at the next one, our average ticket closure, because there's urgent tickets and then there's the overall body of work with tickets in general. What you'll see is in 15-16, 74 hours and 52 minutes on average. 16-17, 35 hours and 50 minutes. 17-18, 14 hours and 55 minutes is our overall average. Big step.
Did you start educating the person that was creating the ticket to help that get better?
It actually wasn't as much education of the ticket person who was creating it, more the person who was assigned to.
Got it.
How they would manage that. Great question. And then one might ask, well, did your ticket counts go down in general? You were able to manage those better? And the answer is it actually went up. So here are our totals between 15-16 and then, of course, at the end, 17-18. A gradual change, but an increase nonetheless year to year. Why does that happen? Well, we do seem to accumulate more technology. I love to say we do a better job managing all issues, but we just get more of a variety, I guess. So 3456 is the tickets, not just for our technicians, but also for our help desk, for our Chromebooks, and other items. And then you would say, well, what about customer satisfaction? We know that it's two parts. It's not just how well you complete a ticket and try to finish the job. Are people happy? Every time a ticket is closed, the person who originally opened that ticket receives a survey, and that survey shows the difference of year to year. It's not a huge dip or a huge increase. Of course, what we're saying is we do have a slight increase in customer satisfaction ratings, and again, we're able to keep that up while we're seeing ticket numbers go down. Probably no surprise in that regard. Next one, Chromebooks, access and safety. We have a lot of Chromebooks in the district. In fact, some of you are on them right now. But what about the usage of Chromebooks? People have asked, well, what are our students doing this whole time? Are they simply watching Netflix? Are they doing other things? And actually what you'll find is our top sites. We have Google Docs at the very top. By the way, this snapshot is for a week of time. That's it. So we have 11,873 hours of Google Docs time in a week. Imagine what that equates to over the course of an entire school year. YouTube, not a shocker. Yes, students will watch music videos on that. We would love to shut that down, but YouTube also has many educational purposes. Like one was on manatees I saw come across the board. So it's not just about being off task, and you'll see that in the rest of the other sites that are visited. Google.com, Classroom.com, Mail.google.com, Cool Math Games. Sounds like they're just gaming the whole time. This is actually used as an educational tool by many of our teachers. We have Quizlet, another education resource. Drive.google.com, Prodigy Game. That one's not as much. It's used by classroom teachers. To me, it's more of a fun game, but I don't mind saying that. That's just one of them. McGraw-Hill for some of our online textbooks. And coming in last is Campus, Infinite Campus. So there is the app for that too, so kids might use that on their phone, just as an option. So I know we have about 11 sites here. This is just kind of the top that you would see. Kind of a nice overall assortment of what we have. On the left, you'll notice we have sites that are blocked, sites that are flagged. How many Google Docs were accessed in that period of time and how many YouTube videos. Maybe we'll get to a point where the YouTube videos will be under Google Docs. And then also 272,000 Google searches. And once again, this is just in 1 week. So pretty powerful.
Doesn't seem like a lot of online users.
Well,
Online
that is
users
at
or something.
that point in time, which would have been, I think, boy, I did this Sunday night. So,
Oh, that was actually,
yeah,
a live number
that was
versus
the live number,
accumulated,
only active at that point in time.
Yeah.
on their
versus
device.
those rest are accumulated.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safety and citizenship. We do have a curriculum that's created for all students 1st through 8th grade. Kindergarten is included in that, they just don't get as much specific. But really the curriculum is meant for 1st graders through 8th graders in terms of an active one integrated through our library. Our health room classes, our health classes rather than health room, are the ones instructing for high school students. In that regard, is it comprehensive where they're learning something about safety and citizenship every day? They are not. But it is enough to cover what we consider to be an extension of the work happening in 1st through 8th grade. Newsletter tips go home on a regular basis, thanks to Tony Hanowski, who presented just about a month ago. And that goes home on a regular basis through building newsletters. We also have a Google site, and we'll click on it now to save you the time, but you certainly can, that shows our curriculum and where we get our content from to educate our students, which Tony regularly updates and is constantly looking for new ways to support that learning for kids. We understand that it can't happen in a day. We know that it has to take more time than that to be fluid, for it to be proficient. We want students to be responsible. It starts at a young age so that we're not battling back when they get to be older. So, interactive alerts. We now have something called Smart Alerts. And Smart Alerts are, and I'll bring you to the next page, there are 2 ways that GoGuardian, which is our security and filter system for Chromebooks, can actually use a smart alert, and that is that it looks for explicit content or self-harm. In this case, this is an example of a self-harm search that might have been done. And what will happen is this will actually build out the screenshots of exactly what that student or user was seeing at that point in time, provide the context for what their searches were leading into it, and you'll see the minutes leading up to that search and the minutes after. That way you know if this was just an isolated search, they were doing research on it, or was this something they were just saying, I need to find out how to end this. And I hate to be too direct about it, but again, this is what that Smart Alert system does. And then you can actually see who has observed and viewed the alert and who it's been assigned to and whether it's been resolved. So there's some built-in systems there to pick up on it. We're getting a ton of alerts in this regard, not a lot because they're caught and flagged by many of the other processes within GoGuardian, but this one's much better again because you're seeing the screenshot. You know exactly what that student was looking at that point in time. A powerful utility nonetheless, and again, part of our filtration process through GoGuardian.
Do these filters only work when they're in our buildings, or would they get the same alert if they had their Chromebook at home?
Same alert all day, all night, anytime. So, yeah.
So how would an alert similar to this be handled?
Well, in most cases, so we would have administration assigned to the alert. They would receive that, and it would show again who has viewed or responded to it. So if there are multiple administrators in the building, they know it's being taken care of. That could be alphabetical based on high school as an example. That could be an AP at one of our middle schools as another example. Does
And
that answer
who
your
is
question?
monitoring this at all times?
Our principals are the ones who monitor. They receive these and they act accordingly, right? They're not up 24/7 to see it, but at the same time, they are very responsive. So,
And how many of these smart alerts do we get each day?
yeah, this is not a complete guess, but I'm going to summarize that. When I last looked, we had about 25 per day. Some are alerts due to, again, someone doing research on self-harm. Sometimes explicit content isn't explicit. It's because I looked at a YouTube video that had commentary or links to another site that might have been explicit. So it's kind of that second and third tier of that. So there are a few false alarms, I guess is the way to put it. Okay. Chromebooks by the numbers. From day one, I felt it always was important for the board and all members to know what's really happening with the use of these devices. The breakage, the types of breakage, how many loaners we give out. There is quite a bit of screen breakage that happens. And the best part is we have a system in place to manage that. From repairs, from a depot, from a communication to family members, parents, most likely that there's been a breakage. We hope that there's a very minimal cost in place, so it's not just a free-for-all in terms of that breakage, but enough where there's a little skin in the game for that in terms of a deductible and elective insurance. Again, it's not a forced insurance. So we try to keep those costs low. We have enough parts on hand to make those repairs, and we also use TRA for some of that work too, which is called Technology Resource Advisors. I'll actually be referencing them later. One thing I wanted to share is we were doing some walkthroughs. This was at the high school about a week and a half ago. And I was sitting in an English classroom. And right away the class started and the student said, they raised their hand, "My screen's cracked." Oh no. And nobody really screamed or thought this was a horrible thing. But he said, "Can I go get a loaner?" The teacher said, "Absolutely, sure." The student was back in under 5 minutes. So walking from one far end of the building in the English wing all the way to the BMIT Tech Center, getting a new loaner to simply replace, walking all the way back and being live in under 5 minutes. That's the kind of process we have in place to make sure that there aren't teachers in the classroom saying, "Wait a minute, how come all my students do not have a functional and operational device?" It does go a long way. We were very proud of that support feature. How does everybody take full advantage of it? No, not necessarily. But in this case, we had a very quick turnaround for time, and we have enough loaners and devices to make sure that students are taken care of. The one type of loaner we want to decrease and reduce is those that are simply not charging their device and coming in the morning saying, "I just need to charge my computer. Can you give me a device in the meantime?" We can certainly crack down on that, but for right now, we're holding the line on being able to provide a device in lieu of while their device charges. So that's what you'll see with the number of loaners given out, isn't just for repairs.
I know I asked you this years ago before
Yes.
I was on the board.
Yes.
Did you ever find a family plan for the insurance thing for people who have 6 kids like myself?
You know, it's funny. We have reduced the cost of it in general, both the actual cost and the deductibles. So by that, we've tried to, kind of cut it down in terms of general costs. But we still don't have a family plan, but I'm not opposed to that at all. Really, the insurance is as much to assist in some level of financial exchange so that the devices aren't just again, a free-for-all in terms of damage, but at the same time, it's not like a moneymaker. So again, the district will be fine with adjusting.
Yeah, it just adds up after you have so many kids. You're like, okay, I could buy one of these. You know what I mean?
That's a really good point.
After a year, so I don't know. The tough part of having a large family, I guess.
Yes. Thank you, Tracy. Moving on. Partnerships. Our presentation to the board in spring, I did discuss the whole WCTC cybersecurity program, and that was training for K-12 tech leaders and technical teams. Now I'm talking about a training for staff and teachers. Again, through WCTC, they're using the program called Gen Cyber, and this would be paid for by a grant process, so no cost to the district. And in fact, a teacher that would take this, and our target group for this is our BMIT Tech Center teachers, for which we have 3. All 3 have interest. We anticipate at least 2 of the 3 would be enrolled. This is a week-long course that would train our teachers. They would also get a $500 stipend and also a laptop with the official software necessary to teach this back in the district. So a big step forward in terms of resources. Our teachers are very willing to do this, which is wonderful. It's something we discussed long ago. And also it's aligned to the National Security Agency and their intended curriculum. And also within that is time to develop the curriculum. So this is not just about cybersecurity in general. This is how you would teach it in your schools. And we already have modules in place within the curriculum where this could be attached to, where it could make an immediate difference in the fall. So excited about that opportunity. There are 24 open seats, and this could be eligible for anyone in the state. We're hopefully looking forward to having our local teachers here as a participant in that program. Another one is Industry 4.0. You may have heard a little bit about this. And what it is the idea that there are industrial revolutions that are continuing to happen, and we are now in the 4th industrial revolution. I know you all can read, but you can understand at the very baseline we have the original industrial revolution, then we had the mass assembly line, now we have things like automation and robotics, and in Industrial Revolution 4.0, we have it based on cyber and physical production systems. That makes a big difference. Why? Because we're talking about data analytics, cybersecurity, coding and programming, those being the core pieces of manufacturing. At the top of this, I was able to visit with Ray Kukari at the Gateway Technical College. He's the Dean of Information Technology, Engineering, and Business. And why was that important? He shared that with Foxconn coming in, he said, you know, they're not the only ones, but that's a big one that everybody has heard about. They understand that the needs for manufacturing are changing, and they're creating programs to do that. Why is that important for us? Well, we're looking at our Fab Lab. And so I was able to see the Fab Lab at Gateway Technical College. Beautiful. It was a fabulous Fab Lab. And the thing was, it had all these new technologies in it that we actually have a few in our district already. So I thought, we could bridge that gap. Well, we're able to get connected with someone who's a local resident of the district and had designed the Fab Lab at Gateway Technical College and is now willing to provide that as a resource for design at our new Mosquito Lakes Middle School. So we're excited about that opportunity and see where it goes. Nothing in writing yet, no exact proposals, but those are forthcoming. And so we feel like we have the right person in place to help us guide us through this process of designing a Fab Lab that can give our kids that opportunity for that kind of exposure early on in their experiences here in the district. So Fab Labs at Mosquito Lakes, a goal to reach over to Lake Danu, and then of course work our way up to the high school would be our ideal state. We also had a Chromebook Academy internship. TRA, which again is one of our systems that we use for device repair and warranties, actually opened up their doors to do a Chromebook Academy and invited any welcome students from our district. We'd only had one participant. The reason was the distance. It's more in Menominee Falls. But the student took advantage of a paid internship with advanced training opportunities and on-the-job training. So, and it paid actually very well. I was embarrassed to say it pays more than some of our summer work that we have, and I was hoping we weren't going to lose a student that way. But it's great, again, to have a partnership with another opportunity and another learning experience for students going forward. If you've been on our website recently, you may have noticed a chat feature. Some of you might consider that annoying. Well, our goal is to not make it annoying and actually to make it very useful. So in this case, here's a screenshot or two of it. The bottom right corner is a live chat with M&S. And actually, if you click on that, you'll receive a live person here at the district office. We have 2 people that currently operate that utility. And what happens when you click on the box is you get the screen on the right that says, hi there, how can I help you? Please tell me your name. So you put your name and your email address in, and you start chatting. Well, we've had some interesting questions. This is a good way to drive what we understand is what are people doing and looking for when they're on our website. And we've got some questions about, hey, what kind of Tier 3 interventions do you have in the district? Well, that was odd. We didn't expect that one. When is the play happening at the Performing Arts Center? Who is the contact for this? What is your directory? There were several questions like that on a regular basis. Now, this isn't supposed to be in lieu of phone calls. This is not in lieu of our front desk being open, right, with our slider door. That's all still open for business. This is just an add-on. And then sometimes people might say, I feel more comfortable doing the chat, particularly if I'm looking on the website and not finding what I'm needing. This has metadata with it. We can tell what pages people have visited, what browser they're using, what part of the country or state or even area of a community they're connecting from, and actually what questions they have. That entire conversation will be transcribed. So we can, again, use that as, how do we need to set up our website so people don't need to chat with us, they can go find it right away. That's our goal. We've had a lot of communications committees that have helped inform this type of work, and I'm happy to say that our goal is we're going to roll it out to all the buildings in the summer, and so that they can start to participate in this chat feature as well.
So how many chat sessions can one person at the office handle?
They can do multiple, but we also can limit it in the system that they'd only be able to do one, and then the next person in line can either hold, or they would get a thing that just says email us, and then we'll reach back out to you. So as an example, if one of the people running this program is at lunch or offline, it simply says email us with any questions. So they have that as an option too, and again, after hours they would have that as well. Now what would happen if we have multiple buildings? If I have a question about Lakeview, and I want to transfer it over to Karen Torbeck at Lakeview, who would be on that system, I can simply click on her user, send it to her, and she can pick up on that same chat. So just as an example of how things can be transferred locally, similar to a phone call.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're servicing, because I've been on a number of chat sessions where it's obvious that the person is handling 4 or 5 people at one time, because you type in something real simple, and 20 minutes later, they finally get back to you.
Yeah, and I'd love
We're
to say
trying to
we've
avoid
had a lot of traffic on the chat, and we haven't. It's probably because we haven't broadcasted it. We just wanted to kind of hang a fishing line and see what we would get. And at this point, it's been rather modest. But happy to report again, very satisfactory results, and I'm looking forward to what it means for people. I was getting an oil change, or trying to get an oil change. I was on the website, the chat box popped up, and I thought this is rather easy to do. Why is this only resigned to businesses? Let's see what happens in the school district with it. So that was kind of neat.
I actually tried it, because I was like, is this working?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if it was actually live, and
Right.
sure enough, somebody answered, and
Great.
I kind of said, who is, you know, like, what's your role, and how are you answering? And she was very helpful, and said it wasn't taking too much of her time at this point in time, and
Good.
so it was good. And then she kind of hinted, well, if people don't chat with me all the time, I wouldn't be honest. I'm like, all right, bye.
Yeah,
But I could see how that could possibly happen too, where
Thank you.
people.
Yeah, and actually, we've advised them when it gets to a certain point, or a certain number of lines, that they call.
Yeah.
Right, to terminate a chat that might be too lengthy or maybe even out of hand. So alternative funding sources. That big number is the amount of money that we are set to potentially receive through E-rate subsidy in this year alone, money back to the district. The big one, of course, no surprise, I've been, probably hurting and making your eardrums bleed a little bit, is the fiber piece, and that's $340,000. And then the other part would be in the amount of roughly $148,000 to $150,000 for our cabling at the new school buildings, at the renovated building as well, our switches, our wireless net entities. We're able to apply this year and actually get money back on those. So it's a rather large sum of money that goes simply right back into the district. Of course, we're spending money to get that money, but once again, it's a nice subsidy. Roughly 40% of what we spend can come back. Another thing that's being introduced this year from the DPI in state of Wisconsin is a one-to-one grant opportunity. So in short, what that means is if you spend a certain amount of money per student, incoming ninth graders to be specific, anything over $125 would be reimbursed through a grant process that we are fully eligible for, which would come in mid to late 2019. So of course we would apply for it in that spring of that year. We would be eligible to receive up to that amount. This is based on projections of enrollment of incoming ninth graders. So it's not an exact number, obviously, because that could change, but this is the amount of dollars we're looking at potentially having. So it's supposed to run up to 5 years, or until it runs out of money. And so it's not something that is necessarily sustainable, but this certainly can inject some extra dollars into our process. So,
There's always the ninth grade going in.
yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. How are we doing? Everybody awake? Great? All right, I'm trying to hurry. So, what I have, I'm going to pass around because I know you can't wait. I actually cut out a piece of our cable underground, and I just kidding, I didn't do that. So this is from MC&E, and this is an actual piece of the fiber cable that is being put underground. Within that, we have some buffer cables. These are basically solid white ends so that this can keep kind of the cylinder type shape. And then we have some 12-strand fibers that are actually being sent in the ground. So this is a 24-strand fiber cable, as an example. And so we have some of this going in certain areas, other are 72, depending upon the location of our fiber network. I'm simply going to pass that around, have you take a look at it and go ahead and inspect it. So that is actually what is going in the ground as we speak in the latest version of our fiber cable. So why is that exciting? Well, I'm very excited to report in the, in the first bullet point, connectivity between Muskego Lakes Middle School and the ESC is now complete, hot off the press. That was as of 5:35 today that was completed, and that is a huge step. Yep. How is that such a big deal? Well, that's the place we have no connectivity to, so cups and string aren't going to cut it. And in this case, you can see the green line on the picture shows that full run to that location. That one was obviously the most time sensitive. Now that we're past that, we can start running fiber to other locations, because all fiber has been tested. I talked about pre-acceptance last time, and Brett had asked about the fiber. We also received a permit from Racine County. That was the last piece for doing underground. Again, thank you to Jeremiah and Julie for helping process some of the paperwork necessary to get us there. You know, nothing's ever like easy, and that was a pretty big document. So now that we have that, they're scheduling the crews for underground work to complete that final stretch to Lakeview Elementary School, which you'll see is absent from our map. Project is on time and on budget, and the remaining fiber runs will be completed in June. And then last but not least, You get the runs to the locations of the actual physical building. All of our internal connections are already installed at each building. So once the runs are there, we'll be able to sync those together, splice them, and get connectivity. So I'll be very excited to report to you when that happens. Stay tuned for more.
So you're currently like less than a half mile from Franklin's line.
Yes.
So when are we going to connect to that?
Well, we have two options. Glad you asked. One is Franklin, short distance. The other is New Berlin, a little longer distance. Franklin connects to Alverno and then into the bigger picture of, we'll call it the superhighway. And New Berlin connects into Waukesha County, which is double redundant. There are fiber cables that are going in the ground that are way more reliable. So not that either wouldn't be great, because then it gets us off our need to even have that transit out. We actually can use one or the other, and we have good relationships with both districts, so it's probably going to be an exploration on both sides. But I'd like to start that as, I hate to say it, but as soon as we get our full connectivity and investigate what that looks like. So. By the way, I was just going to say that now that we have that connectivity in the school, it opens up the floodgates for us to be able to get switches installed, wireless installed, our phone systems up and running. Right now, Mike Kozlowski has no connectivity when he's there. It's like he's in The Shining or something. Like it's all craziness. So there really is nothing happening in the building until we have full lit connectivity, and that's soon to come. Once you add a fiber network, you may also need to think about what is your internet pipeline. This is just a 60-day snapshot, and what you can see is we have 1 gig, so 1,000 meg of internet that we pay for. And this is just one snapshot, but you can see we've hit max of 971 at a few points, and we're hitting between 600 and 800 on a regular basis. So certainly we're reaching that point where once we open up those pipelines to each building, and again, we're not adding additional users, but we are at 100 meg throttles for our elementary schools, which serves them well enough. But like I said, we're going to be opening up these pipelines. This is just one 60-day, but over the course of the year, we've hit the 900 internet meg connection probably on a monthly basis. So that's kind of our warning sign. It's time to step into the next realm. So what is that? WisNet has a thing called Connect Plus One. Why is this unique? Instead of just simply doubling our internet to say 2 gig, which would be the next step, they'll actually partner with another provider. And that other provider will then provide a secondary gigabyte of internet. So 2 gigabits combined. Why is that relevant? Well, we almost get about 2 gig total for the district, but if WisNet gets cut or chopped and that fiber connection were to be, severed, which has happened 3 times in the past year and a half, we would fail over to Spectrum for full speed. Or vice versa. If the other one fails, we can fail over to WisNet. Now, are we at full operational level? No. But as an example, when this happened in late 2016, we had about 10 megabytes of internet for the entire district. And you can imagine it brings everybody down to its knees. And in this case, we would again be, hopefully, unless there's something catastrophic, down to a minimum 1 gig of internet, which is where we are now. So that's going to be an option for us to add, and of course have some failover and redundancy at the same time.
What kind of cost, isn't one of the ideas of us going to fiber to have the to have the ROI by not having a contract with Spectrum?
We still need to pay for, so we're building the train tracks right now, we still need to pay for the train, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So this is really the train portion of it to speed on those tracks, and we'll still have to pay for that. So this allows our internal buildings to communicate with one another and our on-ramp out, but we still need to fill those pipes with internet speed, which is what this process would be. So,
Tony, what's the 2, is it 1 gig either or are we ever at 2?
Yes, we're at just under 2 would be our max. So it does like what Fat Pipe would do.
So they both would supply 1 gig, and how do you dictate what goes where, or you just have?
That's arranged through WisNet.
Okay.
That they would have that. So they manage it and support that from both vendors.
And then if WisNet fails, you've got 2 gig through Spectrum?
We'd have 1.
1, okay.
Yep, 1 max. 2 combined, again, it's just under 2 is what I've been advised. So on a regular basis, we'd have up to 2, we'll call it 1.9 gigs of internet speed.
So WisNet is the primary, and then they determine?
Yes.
Or they do all that behind the scenes? Okay.
Yep, the contract goes through them.
And do we pay WisNet now, and we pay Spectrum?
We would pay WISNET for this opportunity to get Spectrum, so all
Okay.
the billing does go through one.
So then, right now, we have Spectrum, or,
WISNET,
WISNET.
just WISNET.
Currently WISNET alone. We have Spectrum for leasing of our fiber
right,
network.
and then once that, right, so then that's one side, and then that will eventually go away
Yes,
based on your project that you're doing
right,
now.
yes.
And then the WISCNet, that we currently pay for, so we pay 1 gig now,
We pay
and then
for-
we're gonna go to 2.
Correct.
And, okay, is there, I mean, I assume it's an added cost, right?
It is.
Okay.
The quote is $1,900 per month.
Additional or,
Additional and E-ratable. It is about in line with what we pay for the other gig.
so when you say E-rateable, do they allow you to, so then E-rate also allows you to charge or to request
Yep, which we submitted. So we'd be able to take 40%
relief
off.
and stuff, so it'd be 40% off that additional 1,900?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we connected to New Berlin, then we would be able to drop WISNET completely, or we drop the Spectra part of it?
No,
Or we keep it?
We would keep both of those, because again, to New Berlin just gives us, again, access to more train tracks. I don't have a better metaphor at this point.
Mm.
We still need that speed through the tunnel, which is what provided by the internet service provider itself.
You know, side streets, they have the freeway.
Yes, right.
Yeah, but I thought that's what connecting to New Berlin or Franklin would
We
do.
pay just
would be-
for the transit, so right now, we lease the fiber through Spectrum between our schools and the outlet out to the World Wide Web. So we would reduce the internal this round, and then we build out to the external, which through New Berlin means that we don't have to pay for that run, but we still have to pay for our internet service on all of that.
Okay.
So
All right, so what are we currently paying anything to Spectrum right now?
yes,
How much a month?
about $12,000 or $13,000.
Okay, 13K per month. And what are we paying to WISNET currently?
Yeah, again, after E-rate, it's about $1,200 to $1,300 per month.
That's for the 2 gig or the
One.
1 gig?
And then after, we're gonna be paying, what are we gonna be paying?
1,100, give or take. Don't quote me completely on that, just doing some quick math there would
Okay,
be
you're right,
bucks
To what,
forty.
1,100 to what?
What?
times 12.
Times 12.
Yep, per month.
To Spectrum?
Yes. Well, it goes to WISNET, they manage the Spectrum service.
Okay, but that part's going to Spectrum. So we're going from 13K to Spectrum right now down to 1,100. 1,100 a month.
Yes,
And then we're still paying the 1,300 a month for WISNET?
yes. Either way, if we would have upgraded our internet, we would have to make the 2 gig jump. It would have been a similar amount. In this case, it just becomes an opportunity for failover redundancy where we wouldn't have that before. That's probably the biggest feature of that.
So then you would expect in the budget, then there'd be like a request for an additional 14K to cover the 2 gig costs.
It'll be out of my own budget.
Okay, so you'll cover that? Okay.
Yeah. It's not a request for any funding at this point.
No, I'm just trying to get my, no, that's fine.
But isn't the 13K out of your budget too?
Well, that is out of my current budget.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So he's reducing by 13,000 and increasing by,
Oh, he's got the lease cost for the.
He's got the lease
he's got
cost
the lease
on
cost to cover now too, though.
until, because you still have that lease cost for what, 5 to 7 years, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then, so it is an additional
well, that's
cost.
our
but-
lease cost per month.
But we only have an annual, and it'll be roughly 170,000.
And then your current budget, you'll cover this down the road. I'm not, you weren't really meant to have that here today, I'm just trying to,
No, that's fine. Don't mind.
thank you.
Sure.
So,
And when you said before that about 3 times the disconnection happens, is it between one or the other, or both, are you saying, or?
Good question. We haven't had Spectrum as a service for internet service.
So you
couldn't
don't
tell you.
know.
I won't tell you about WISNET. It was unfortunately between the corridor between Green Bay and Milwaukee, which is a very large line. Backhoe hit it 2 different occasions, and then a run between, what was it, West Bend and some other location caused the issue. So
and I finally got the wire, and I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So they have these like, it looks like they're
Filler
stents or
tubes?
something, yeah.
Yes.
Is that stuff that you could actually put additional stuff in the future?
Oh, yeah.
That you could do? Oh.
Absolutely, and they've actually run a cable ribbon, if you will, through it, so things can be pulled back one way or the other.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. I like it.
So you think you're gonna break even when on the lease
5 to
cost?
7 years is the anticipated.
And what's the life expectancy of the fiber?
It is, again, they don't know 100% the full life expectancy. They're anticipating modestly 25 to 30 years.
But it's been out for 50, and some of those 50-year-old cables are still operating.
I don't know if our current version of it has been out that long, you know what I'm saying?
But the oldest
Different
ones have been out
optics.
there for...
Yes.
And some of them I know still are working, although
Correct.
a lot of them have been replaced anyways.
Yeah, the technology I don't think has changed drastically, but I know it has some.
But the biggest cost is not the cable, it's the pipe that we put in.
Right, once we have that running new cable through, it should be a lot less expensive. Thanks.
I appreciate you benchmarking this and including those Qualtrics. This is very
Do you see
helpful.
the screenshots?
Are you moving ahead?
Oh, I did, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, Tony. Okay, I saw the graph and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, that's fine.
not a good-
So just under a year ago, the board supported the approval of Qualtrics as a dashboarding tool for the district. In that time, we've added dashboards for redefining ready, for HR, kind of cross-sections between educator effectiveness and employee engagement, to name a few. Operations dashboards, which is an area that we had dashboarding tools around a lot of student results, not necessarily dashboards around operational results. And also dashboards for customer satisfaction surveys, which were just administered to the district. Thank you, Jeremiah, for that. And a build out. We had a user group meeting here in the district last week. 13 districts in the state of Wisconsin now using Qualtrics. A few of them very new like us. And some of those were Milwaukee, Waukesha, Madison, Mequon, Thiensville. Some pretty notable districts. Even Wanakee and potentially a few others in the Madison area. Mill Road is another one of those. And our rep said that we're the most advanced district in terms of dashboard tools out of any districts that are using it in the state. And some of these districts have been using it for 3 to 5 years, particularly these larger institutions. So again, I think I want to recognize, again, the fact that this is a big step for us, but also the vision that Kelly had for importing this into the district, a big step for us, the cabinet and their willingness to really spend the time to implement this on behalf of their dashboards. And also two people I'd like to recognize as well, and it's not about recognitions, I understand, but to understand the work, Michelle Murphy, our programmer, who's really been doing the project management to get this up off the ground, and then Michelle Plaushines, who's our data and innovation specialist, to continue this work going forward. Some very exciting work going on there. You see a lot of the dashboards that are coming up, and maybe I'll just go through a few of them. Not because you need to read all this print, but you can see how versatile a system we have and the ability to quickly filtrate on these. We want to look at it by school, we want to look at it by gender, we want to look at it by test, we want to look at it by date. These results are quickly and easily accessible within it. Doesn't mean no dashboard can do this, but Qualtrics has been probably the most flexible for us when it comes to identifying the data and being able to filter quickly. Christy Brooks, who you all know as our secondary curriculum director, did the Redefining Ready dashboard, and there are multiple tabs of multiple visualizations in that. And it allows, again, for that quick view of what's happening, but also the opportunity to drill down. So it isn't just a snapshot in time, it's way more than that. And again, the success comes with, there are 3 parts to Qualtrics. One is the research tool, which is really the surveys. That's how we get the data in. The other one is called Vocalize. These are the dashboards that you're seeing up here. And the third part is called Stat IQ. And that's the part that can do correlations of data, essentially statistical analysis that you might have to use something like SPSS otherwise to try to determine this data. And it actually does that detail for us. We are not selling ourselves as statisticians, but certainly it makes us feel and look like it sometimes. So because of this, again, you're seeing these great visualization tools, but it's also giving us the real comparative data as well. So.
And everything is, just generalized and stuff because of FERPA and all that kind of stuff? It's not like student specific?
Anything outward facing would of course be, anonymous and yeah, it wouldn't be nothing like that. It would be very summarized, summative data. In this case, some of our internals are still not down to the student name level as an example, but more the demographic of that. I'm going to move into projector updates. So we did an audit, and we found that the average age of our projectors in the district is 5 years. Doesn't mean they're falling apart, but that's the average age. And unfortunately, we have some projectors that are between 9 and 10 years old in our system. And a great side of that, that means that was a great investment, they're still working. The sad side of that is that they're probably yellowing and dimming, and while they're still working, we have a lot of people squinting at them. And so I'm not trying to make too much of a joke other than to say that they are operational, but not really great. Here you see us that we're already turning a set of lights down to be able to view this projector. It might be time as well to replace it. And the thing is, what makes a projector good? Well, I've listed a few things here for why we are making the change to Epson interactive projectors. Now, we have a lot of these in the district already, but this is going to be a new option for us. They have a thing called the BrightLink. It's an interactive projector. They'll use a board that's 100 inches diagonally, just like you see here. Our typical board in classrooms is 67 inches. It's a pretty big change. Why? They're brighter, so you can have the lights on, the windows open, and there's no issue of glare or not seeing the screen. That will make a big difference for all students, regardless of where you sit in the classroom and the time of day you're there. We can have up to 8 interactions at one time on the board. That means people individually touching the board. There can be 8 people. It might get a little tight, right? But that many people can manipulate and navigate and annotate on the board at the same time. There are markers for that, and you can use a fingertip as well. Cost effective. It's half the cost of the interactive flat panels that we had looked at. We're not necessarily flat panels from a perspective of the technology. That's wonderful. But they couldn't find the size. There are no 100-inch flat panels that we could ever afford. They would just be astronomical in cost. And at the same time, even if we compare them to more of like a 70-inch flat panel, these are still half the cost. So a bigger screen and a brighter one. Also, we have a lot of users using smart boards. You've heard that term over and over and over again. What are those users going to do? Well, this BrightLink actually comes with the latest version of Smart Notebook, so we can bridge the gap for those users. That means they don't have to worry about not having access to all their Smart Notebook files that they've spent an eternity making. So we make that conversion and hopefully convert them out of it eventually. The other part is we took a trip up to visit a neighboring school district closer to the northwest corner of the state. And we've educated ourselves on how to install these and looking to save about $1,200 per board, having these installed by ourselves, by our own teams in the district. That's a partnership between Buildings and Grounds and technology to find ways to make that happen. It's a great money-saving opportunity, but also we've become really good and very responsive when new boards go up. Why is that an idea? Well, our goal is to replace all projectors in the district over the next 3 years. It's a great time to do it because we come on the heels of Muskego Lakes Middle School, getting new boards within that building. Why not start that process in perpetuity going forward for the rest of the district? So we're excited to say we found an affordable opportunity, one that we feel is very high performing, one that is cost effective, and one that we can save a lot of money installing our own instead of looking at outside resources to do so.
How many boards is that you're looking at?
Great question. So about 300.
Oh, that was more than that.
Yeah, well, and again, most of the time it's just the classrooms, a few general conference spaces, and we're going to have 55 of them put in already at Muskego Lakes Middle School. So a big chunk of that to come. Well, I think I've said enough, and all I want to say is thank you for listening to this presentation. Again, my intent and purpose was to give you as much information as I could, and hopefully a little bit on time. I realize I probably went over that. And if you do have any questions, certainly feel free to follow up with me. And again, any questions here for me right now?
You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, Tony.
much, Tony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we have an update on the co-curricular athletics compensation model.
Okay, so at the last meeting, we reviewed the co-curricular comp model. I did include in the packet for you the example of all of the contracts that we would be issuing in the fall. And then what we've shown is the current contract amount that exists, the new contract, and then the dollar change for those contracts. in the document that's attached, anything that you see in blue is one of the new contracts that's being requested as part of the proposal, and the yellow boxes are just showing that if a coach is already in place and the new contract would be lesser of a value, you would not take the money away, we would just start at the new value once that coach were to leave our system. So this is the overall fall contract totals. You'll see that there's 3 new positions for fall that are being recommended. The changes in contract amounts over all of the contracts is about $8,000, and with those new positions, it's about a just under $16,000 difference.
Is your estimate that be similar for the other 2 seasons?
So the total change is going to be about 40,000, so yes, if we split over 3 seasons, yeah.
I can't recall, what was the reason for the 3 new
So there were a
positions?
couple of reasons. One was just overall student numbers. We also, I know that Ryan looked at the number of coaches within each of the individual sports as compared to other areas, and where we felt median would be within our regional area. And those were kind of, I think, the 2 main ones were numbers from a safety perspective, and then trying to be at or above median.
Was your question why are we adding the positions?
If I'm reading this right, the
3 blue?
yeah, the blue, those are the new ones, right?
But in some cases, they were already existing, being paid for by booster clubs. So
Correct.
we wanted to bring them under our roof.
Correct.
Okay, so that was the deal, that was the booster clubs, and we don't want them doing that, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So they're existing positions. The only thing new is that we don't want the booster clubs to pay, we're
For
taking
some of
that
them.
over.
For some of them,
Okay.
not all.
Well, the ones that are yellow, those are the,
Those are the higher paid ones.
Yep, so those coaches currently make over what the recommended contract amount is. We are just leaving them as is. We're not reducing their contract.
okay,
Yeah.
that's
And
the
then they'll catch
delta.
up
Okay,
when-
that's the delta column, okay, so there's the 3, so we had a JV boys cross country and the
We
booster
did
club
not,
paid it.
no.
No,
This
so that one is
actually
new.
based on numbers, correct.
So then the varsity football assistant, we did have one, and the Gridiron paid for it?
Someone did.
Yes.
Okay, someone did,
Yes.
okay. And then the freshman football assistant, we had one and someone paid for it. Okay,
Similar
so
situation.
we're taking over 2 and we're hiring 1 new one.
Correct.
Okay.
I only have a question on one
Sure.
that I don't understand.
Sure.
I tried to look at head coach, assistant,
Okay.
tried to see if there were consistencies. The only one I don't understand is between the varsity football head coach
Yep.
and the varsity football offensive coordinator. He was the same as the defensive coordinator and the STC, and went
I'm
up,
going to have to ask Ryan about that one.
and he's $35 under the head football coach.
Mm-hmm.
Which all the other ones are very consistent throughout, except for that one.
I'm going to see if I have. I'm thinking it's based on the years of experience that the person has been in the system,
Oh,
but I would have
So-
to call back.
Okay, so being a head football coach is only worth $35 more than being an assistant.
That's a good question. I will double check.
Seems kind of-
Yeah, we had,
Seems
Ryan
kind
and
of-
I both looked at these, and that was the amount that was brought forward. However, I can make the adjustment.
Especially when the other 2 assistants are,
Well, the
Yeah,
one
I'm
difference
wondering,
might be,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
just
I'm
guessing.
wondering if my head coach one is incorrect.
Oh, that could be. The other guess I might have is that it's not really the offensive coordinator position, it's they're the true assistant
boys,
head coach,
varsity.
which is
Could-
different level
could
than
be a difference.
level than a coordinator.
Oh.
So typically,
Here.
OC or
Oh,
DC is going to
okay.
be the assistant head coach as well. Maybe it's that, I'm just guessing.
So we can follow up with
Yeah.
an
Yeah, I'll
email.
follow up on
And do you know why the girls soccer team is not listed on here at all?
that. The girls is a
Spring.
spring
Spring.
sport.
It's
Oh,
just
so
fall.
This is just fall,
Okay,
correct.
Okay. I guess first when I saw swim, I wasn't thinking that was fall, but it must.
The boys' soccer is fall, girls' soccer is spring.
Swimming, I was thinking it was winter.
No, that's boys.
Oh.
So I'll follow up with an email on the football contracts.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so the next item is long-range capital plan, and this is in response to some of the questions that were brought forward by the board regarding planning for some of the projects that were brought forward for discussion in the area, for, under Jeremiah. So he brought forward his long-term plan, and you want to speak to it?
Thank you. So after last time, I just wanted to reacclimate everybody with our capital plan and just the processes that we use to review this every year. So each year, I will say last year was not very typical because we've been dealing with so many referendum projects. I will meet with the principals and we'll go through their buildings, identify any needs. If need be, we'll go through some costing, bring in people to get bids. That will go onto a macro list of everything we have, and everything on that list gets weighted from 1 to 5 through 7 different categories, from safety to compliance to just aesthetics. And we look at the highest needs each year, and we use that to apply our $400,000 to $700,000 capital budget. Once the projects are selected that are going to get brought forward to you guys, I bring that forward. This year it was in December, and I attached that presentation to this item here. And so on slide, I believe it was slide 9, it went through what I was planning to do in the spring. And so then from that point till spring, I go through an effort of actually collecting bids and meeting with contractors. In a lot of cases, like of roofs or parking lots or sometimes boiler plants, we have to engage engineers to draw up the scope. And sometimes that can be pricey, so usually I get a good gauge from you guys in that capital plan meeting, or in the meeting of how you guys feel about projects. You guys will ask questions. And from there, I start to engage those folks, and they will create a project manual. Sometimes that's this thick for one roof. That will then be competitively bid. And then around this time, I bring these back to you guys for discussion and then approval. So looking outwards, just over the next 5 to 6 years, I just wanted to articulate kind of where we were at. And I will say a lot of times it is a little bit of a moving target. So when I say parking lot repair at the high school, something may happen at Lakeview that causes us to have to visit Lakeview first before the parking lot at the high school. So this particular summer, starting July 1st till the following July, the proposal is to spend $400,000 on the pool construction, which is already planned to be allocated towards the pool. $95,000 in radios and $80,000 in parking lot repairs to be determined. And that's in response to a lot of the construction traffic we've had coming through that is tearing up our lots. And a good perspective of how far that will go, on the west side of the ESC, there's a patch that's there, and that was a $2,500 patch. So once everything is all done and the dust is cleared, we'll assess all of our parking lots and see where we need to repair. We don't want to do it right now because we're continuing to roll over it, but we'll be able to mark off what we want to be repaired. And that's a good thing throughout our lots. Just because something needs to be repaired doesn't mean you need to replace the entire parking lot. 1920 will be Lake Danoon roofing. I listed a section here, and on the bottom you'll see an associated map with which section that is. So we have a good deal of the Lake Danoon roof completed. I estimate we have about $700,000 left to do. The good news is I did have a professional come and look at it last week, and the report is attached to this. And with some flashing repairs, we can extend the life for up to 7 years of some of that roof, so we don't have to tackle it all at once. And what I like about that is as we come back to it, we don't have to spend next time it could be $2 million. At a single stab, we can parse it out. So the hard thing about a brand new construction is the roof starts to fail all at the same time, and so you have to try to get ahead of it. Sometimes you're replacing roof when it doesn't need to be, just to stay ahead of it. So that was good news, and that pushed back some of the roofing over the next few years. We have the Lake Danoon parking lot replacement. You guys might be thinking we just did that, but the back half is new, the front half is failing. So if you go into the 2 teacher parking lot areas, that's where it's particularly the worst, and we need to focus some efforts there. The ESC parking lot as a whole is getting pretty rough, and fencing at the high school stadium is obviously in disrepair, which we discussed last week. I don't know if I got to dive into it, but if I drive around during the weekends, which I do often, there's always people running around our track, and that's because they're sneaking in underneath. And I really feel like with the investment of concessions and restrooms and bleachers and press box and turf, we do need to protect that asset and just have acceptable fencing. And a lot of it is rusted, and I shared last time, it had gotten blown over, kicked over, so this isn't standing the test of time anymore. 2021, I propose sticking as much money out of the capital as possible towards Lakeview air conditioning. The projected cost this year, and it could have been a high-end estimate through an engineer, was $750,000. So that might be an opportunity to use some funds from Fund 46 if we continue to build that up. The money would be accessible that year, and that's a fund that we can put money into each year. 21-22 would be continued Lake Danoon roofing, another section, and the Bay Lane playground replacement, and that's the one that's up and off of the parking areas, so it's more towards the east. 22-23 will be MHS parking lot replacements, or a combination with the Bay Lane, depending on how things are deteriorating at that point. And 23-24, finishing out the Lake Danoon roof and moving on to more high school parking lot replacements. Looking down in the parking lot conditions, I did note Lakeview, ESC, and the high school are really the next on the list that are going to need repair. Lake Danoon was done just a few years ago, and to give everybody a reference point, the entire front and back parking lots were replaced for about $600,000. So putting that in perspective against the Lakeview project or the ESC, give us a good idea how much the cost will be. We're lucky that Mill Valley and Muskego Lake should be in perfect condition for the next 5 to 8 years. And I want to talk through contingencies. So when I started in this role, working with Julie, there was a past practice that when something broke that was large, it would get funded to fund balance. So essentially, it wasn't budgeted for. And so we started a practice of carrying a contingency throughout the year. So that way we're not coming to you guys saying, can we take this out of fund balance? This is out of what's already budgeted for in the operations budget. And we've had to fund numerous things throughout the last few years. So what I tried to do this year was use that balance for radios and for fencing and other things. And that's how I came and brought that forward to you guys. What I would like to do in the future for things like carpeting or boilers, for carpeting, we can replace things out as they go. So we bid it out and we can have a per classroom cost, and if there's a break or there's a summer opportunity, we can just switch it out during those. And then for boilers, for our larger plants, so the high school's got like 12 boilers, if one goes down, it's not the worst case scenario. We run on a lead leg system, so there's typically 2 others on either side of it, and we just go ahead and design it and replace it as an emergency repair. So that one doesn't worry me as much, and Lake Danoon this year was a good example of that. We went down in January. Gas prices were astronomical because of the heating season, and I was a little bit nervous to pull the trigger right away, and we waited to bring it forward to you guys till now. So we've been running fine without any climate issues. So that is how I intend to use the contingency, and hope that as I bring things forward in the future, it's not viewed as I have extra money and things, there's more to go around than there actually is. It's just effectively managing projects as they arise and being able to use things as they become available.
So on your resolution action items, the two-way radio, truck, boiler are all what you're describing right now, contingency?
The radios were something that I was planning in the budget for this year. And I noted that in the capital presentation earlier in the year.
Okay.
But I would use all of those, correct? Yes.
All right, and then do you have contingency left after those purchases?
It'll be close. Definitely I'm not running at zero. I'm the one kicking into whatever's left at the end of the year, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like what I see, just more than I liked what I saw 2 weeks ago, but my only concern at this point is how can we make the fence at the high school stadium happen to protect our investments that are there? How can we make that happen this year or prior to? I mean, we're going to have a turf field in there, and we're going to have some track updates, and
yeah.
I'm a little concerned that if, the way you're describing the fence, if they're going underneath it or over it or whatever, there's still a possibility they're going to get over top of it. That's just the way it is. A little more difficult to get over top than underneath.
Correct.
So I guess I'm asking Julie if she can either go back or if she has ideas tonight as to how we can make that happen yet in 18-19, preferably to, you know, we got almost this whole project done at the stadium, and it's kind of like putting in a project, but don't put it in the cameras to protect it. So I'm a little concerned about that. So I'm just throwing that out there to see if there's, Jeremiah has any ideas, or if Julie has any ideas tonight, or 2 weeks, or a month from now, as to how we could fund that yet this year.
Parking lots is a moving target, so I set a budget based on what I had to budget for, so there's opportunity possibly within that number. And then any of the things below.
But you're definitely probably looking at parking lot repairs when the pool's done, right?
The good thing about that is Myron did take pictures before they started the project, and they can't leave us in disrepair. They do have to help us make some repairs, so we have a site walk scheduled, so hopefully they can help us get back to where we were, although I'm not saying we were perfect before, but I think they need to help us out, so.
Is that part of our contract?
It's just part of general practice for
I
contractors.
know that they nickel and dime.
Yeah. They did offer to do the walk, though. They're the ones that initiated it, so that's good.
So I'm throwing that out there, but I guess I'm asking the other board members if they would agree to have that fencing done, preferably before this summer, probably, or as soon as possible, to protect what assets we've invested there. I don't know if anybody else feels that way or not.
I just had a quick question. I mean, I haven't inspected the fences, so I don't, you had the one picture where it was kind of leaned over and stuff. If they're going underneath it, why are we not filling that with dirt or some sort of?
Yeah, it's a good
I
question.
mean, that dirt is cheap.
Sure.
It doesn't cost much money. I guess, what are we trying to patch up or fix at this moment in time?
So if you went back to last time we met, I did have, I think, a few pictures, but some of them are just really severely heaved, so we are on some wet lands here. This whole complex is wet, and so we did buy a post pounder to help start pounding a lot down, and we have extended fences, so if you go to the baseball complex, there's about a foot of fence extension, so we do a lot of that, so that is an option, but a lot of this fence is 30-plus years old. It's heaved out of the ground. It's rusted, and a lot of the clips that fasten the fabric have gone, so it's just a constant repair and upkeep to keep it in okay shape.
I'm just concerned that you're saying that there's people going underneath I mean, that's a liability thing.
They're not going
That-
under, they're just walking through. There's wide open gaps right here.
I just don't want it to be where people are going to be injured.
Yeah,
in
no
the
one,
process
no
of
one's
something
crawling
else.
under, either they're jumping on low parts or they're just walking through right back here where it's wide open, so I'm not so concerned about, like people burrowing under, like through the Trump's wall or something like that, but, I mean, it's, yeah. Go ahead, sure. Yeah.
I also like how you laid this out. And I don't need to change it, but I don't have an issue supporting outside of the liability. But I have no issues supporting finding funds to make that fence project complete, as Eric states.
Okay. So actually, my suggestion is, why don't we look through the budget to see if we can find a way of moving that up. If you can't, we are returning a sizable portion from the construction project that we're not going to be using out of fund balance. You get the supplement part of that, bring that back as an option.
What construction project?
The
Field?
No, the
Referendum.
So, I mean, that's fund balance too. So I prefer if we get it out of a budget somewhere. But if you can't, I think we're going to be foolish to sit out there and leave it open, just finish the project.
We can look for it internally within the budget. The one thing that we did anticipate, we were doing the bleacher project, however, we were anticipating most of that happening in the summer. They were able to do it a lot sooner, so the cost of the bleacher project, where we thought we were spending over 2 years, is likely coming fully out of this year's budget, or has. So that may take up a lot of the funds that we usually roll, but we'll.
Well, and even next year, I mean, I know it's a lot of fencing, but if that project was to start on July 1st, it would be done by the time school started.
Right.
Yeah.
And just as reference, I was able to present that last time because I was using half of the radio purchase for the schools that were affected by the referendum. This, I'm now proposing using the rest of this year's contingency and then next year's capital fund to bridge that gap. So.
Understood.
How tall is that fence around the, it's only about yay high, right? I mean,
It's about 6 foot.
It's not 6 foot, is it? It'd be about 5.
No, it's.
There's some internal.
Well, not around the truck, we're talking about like
Outside.
Yeah.
outside, the outside.
It's tall.
part of it.
It's about 6 foot on the outside, 4 foot on the inside, and to replace it all would be 80, and that would go all the way around, all the way towards the high school, back, wrapping the entire stadium.
Same height?
It'd all be the same height on the outside and then the same height on the inside.
With the
We would go with the
Black or
black
red or-
coated, yeah. We did try to just start to prepare, so you'll see it out here as a gate had to go in. We said just do what it's gonna look right in the future, so.
Maybe we could do red, white, blue. Climate like that,
This
wouldn't
would
it?
wait until after.
I didn't even go there.
it's done.
That, you were there at that one, right?
Wait till after the trip is in, because I can just see the same thing that's happening with the pool install being damaged, being done by the construction, industry, that they may do the same thing with the turf field and our fence.
We wanted to look to get it done this year. It would have to happen at the same time, and we would just set out protective areas and not install until the very end in those spaces. So we did cut an opening over here, like that wasn't naturally there. So in order for them to get their stuff in, you'll see that they've started staging already, so they'll be using that same cut in.
So when they start the turf project, did that start today? No, because
Tomorrow's
it's raining.
supposed to start, isn't it?
Where are they coming in from?
I believe this side over here. Yeah. That's what we s-
From this parking lot? Okay.
Are they gonna start in rain?
I wasn't sure what exactly they're gonna do. I just know they're happy as get out to be able to start, so.
We'll bring something back on the 18th.
18th of June.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it okay or no?
Sure.
Any other questions for Jeremiah?
The only thing I didn't get to was the very bottom, which is master planning things. So although I did throw on the Lakeview air conditioning into this, because it is an upgrade to the current system, it would be replacing all the cabinet heaters and some of the control work. This doesn't cover bigger things like expansion of STEM and band or football parking lots or other things like that. Those are things that are bigger, that internal team continues to meet on and strategize for future years.
And I'm sure people at Lakeview appreciate your idea, because I know that they do struggle with the temperatures there.
Yeah. Hopefully they keep liking me for another 24 months.
Well, but just to keep you up to date with where we were, we talked about all this during the referendum talk. We talked about putting a gymnasium there, air conditioning, a lot of things, and there was pushback, so, from Wind Lake Norway people, so.
Okay, well, thanks Jeremiah, appreciate the follow-up. School safety, just our thoughts and prayers going out to the victims and their families from the school shooting in Santa Fe, Texas last Friday, and wanted to just make sure everybody knows that we continue to work with the Muskego Police Department to enhance safety efforts, and we'll apply for part of that $100 million state safety grant. I just included the parent information that I've included in our monthly parent information IC message a number of times this year. So just as a reminder, we are continuing to be diligent about that and take it incredibly seriously. The last item is contributions to the profession, and just a list of opportunities for us to share our good work that's going on here in Muskego, Norway. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Moving on to other reports. President's report, the only thing I have to say is just give a heads up. We will be meeting to talk about the dates review next board, June 18th. Not sure if we've heard back yet from the two past board members if they're going to be participating in that or not, but right now that's what our schedule is. That concludes my report. Is there any other?
I'm representing them. They want to know if there's going to be any compensation.
I'll bring candy.
Okay.
Maybe some chips.
I'll let them know.
And I'll buy drinks after. Drink. All right, other board member reports. Anything?
Well, and I know that Terry attended the informational meetings, which I appreciate the school district doing that cost for us to be able to go to that. Did learn quite a bit of information from them.
Good. Where'd they end up having it?
I went to the one in Whitewater, but you went to the one in Pewaukee. And I think it was the same gentleman that presented at both, so.
No, that's one that we were supposed to have here, but we canceled because there was a...
No, that was a separate one.
Okay.
That was, that one was just a basic, here's a few key points. The primary one is get sworn in by, I think it was the 20th this year.
Yes, yeah.
That was the key thing that WASB wants to, those are more in depth, getting into some more detail about
Yeah.
financing and things like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and not to accept any drinks from anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, tough.
I'll let John know you
All right. Any other board member reports? Moving on to resolution action items, 10A, 2A radio system purchase.
Motion to approve purchase of a 2A radio system from Baycom to be funded as noted, 2018-19 building and grounds budget, $95,642.78, and 2017-18 operations budget, $79,829.18, for a total of $175,491.96.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Any questions on this? It's the same thing we talked about last time with just different funding sources?
Just thank you very much for the off-site conversation we had. I appreciate the time.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to 10B, truck plow purchase.
Motion to approve a truck plow purchase of $39,868.16 to be funded from the 2017-18 building and grounds operating budget.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Anything new on this besides funding source? Actually, this is not even, this was what you had funded last time, correct?
And I appreciate you taking into consideration the garage and the middle school.
Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Moving on to 10C, boiler.
Motion to approve the purchase of a boiler for Lake Danoon Middle School from Southport at a cost of $24,800 to be funded from the 2017-18 building and grounds operations budget.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Same as last time? Any questions?
What's the expected life expectancy of this again? I'm having
It's
trouble
about
finding.
15 years.
15 years for a boiler?
Yeah.
Okay. And the ones we've had in like Test Corners and Ski Well are how old?
Yeah, they don't make them like they used to.
It's just amazing how we've been able to get those to work for so long.
Somebody actually bought a school from us, I don't know where it was, but it had one of these old Cleaver Brooks boilers in it, and they're still using it today, so they're good pieces of equipment.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 10D, technology leases.
Motion to approve a lease with Key Government Finance at a rate of 3.35%.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Tony, you want to give us an update on this?
Once again, not to present you with not very much content, but again, this is just our step to select the leasing company, and then brought back in June would be the actual lease, which would then be put before you for final approval for the 18-19 school year. I'm just showing you what the bids are and what they came in at. Again, rates are up from where they were. And actually, I've been advised they're somewhat volatile in the sense that this number could even change in the next week. So just understood that to be that this is the rates that they're offering at this point in time until we're able to lock in, which would be soon, that there could be some variance.
So when can we lock in?
I can mention that they have to get the paperwork, and we have to sign and get attorneys to approve, and it has to be board approved before we can lock.
So does this part need to be board approved, or is this just an extra step that we're adding? Curious as far as, why not just bring it all forward together?
Yeah. We need to, I'm sorry, we need to get the information from the leasing company, the actual leasing documents, which they won't provide to us, and then we have to have our attorney review them, and we don't want to do that unless you give us authority to move forward with lease in general.
Okay.
First, and then second, which company,
All right.
because each of the leasing documents are a little different.
Well said.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Passes. Moving on to 10E, student fees, 2018-19.
Motion to maintain the 2018-19 student fee schedule at the current 2017-18 fee schedule. So moved.
Discussion?
What we discussed
I
last
think
time.
it was
Right.
self-explanatory.
Yeah, we
Motion?
discussed this.
Any comments, questions, any remarks? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Moving on to 10F, insurance plan revisions.
Motion to approve employee insurance plan revisions as presented.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
There's a little bit of a change here, right, Julia? With regard to the
With the EAP.
EAPs, yeah.
So the EAP, it was asked if we could bring back data that would show how many of our employees actually use it. Because the Employee Assistance Program is through National Insurance Services, it's a pool, so they can't disaggregate the data based on the district because they don't ask for that information when people call in. So we really don't have anything. It is something that we would like to recommend in the future, but are happy to take it off the table for now. We'll do more research and bring back better data for you in the future. We were also, with the ATIPs, we don't have an actual contract. We do have legal looking at that. So when that comes forward, we would actually bring that forward as a separate approval item for you, but just conceptually that you're agreeing to it here.
And the dollars haven't changed in the ATI contract? No, that's right, okay.
Where are we with, what's our status right now with long-term care?
Long-term care no longer exists with our system.
And nobody in our system has it?
Correct.
Okay, I didn't know
It
if
will,
we totally got rid of it, or?
No one has it. Yeah, any retiree who was still on it that was purchasing it on their own had the option to convert
Okay,
if they chose to.
all right.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. 10G, gifts, grants, and bequests.
Motion to accept with thanks gifts as noted below. For Muskego High School, Mr. and Mrs. Scott Coogie for Muskego High School football program, $750. For the Muskego High School softball program, $750. From Mr. William Schneider for the Muskego High School track, $100. Mill Valley Elementary from Payne and Dolan Incorporated for Mill Valley Elementary stones valued at $257.30 for a student project. Lake Danoon Middle School from Outsource America Incorporated for business ed field trip, $1,000. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Moving on to discussion items. 11A, 2018-19 budget. Anything new? Any questions regarding the budget right now? Moving on to 11B, property casualty insurance renewals. Guessing that's you,
Okay,
Julie.
yes, so in the packet, I did include a premium summary. These are preliminary at this point. There's still some final tweaking happening, but that information will be brought back on June 18th when we ask for approval. So these are all of our insurances for property, equipment, breakdown, liability, workers' comp, and so on and so forth. You'll see that for the most part, our big increases came in the commercial property area. Since we have signed on with EMC 3 years ago, we have over $530,000 in claims. And so an increase is anticipated in general. And they've stuck with us. I think if we were to go out to bid in that area, it would be significantly worse for us. So we would like to maintain,
It only
stay
went up
with
10 grand?
EMC. What was that?
It only went up 10, is there a max that they can raise it, that they?
No,
It seems extraordinarily low.
yeah. We have a good
So
broker.
that pays for like the sewer lateral,
The
stuff like
sewer,
that?
The gym floor twice.
The gym floors, yeah.
Yeah. You'll notice workers' comp is another highlight. Again, the safety program that Jeremiah and his team have put in place has been incredible. And our workers' compensation mod, we were just talking, our rates when we both started were just over $350,000.
Wow. Good
So
job,
to be
guys.
down to 191 it's really, really exciting. And we do have another year where we're going to have a bad claim year fall off next year, so we'll likely see a decrease. But the mod was point, hold on.
6.7.
I got it here. 0.72. So if you remember, we were about a 1.4, and you want to be at a 1 to be at the national average. Anything lower, your rates go down. Anything higher, they go up. And so we were almost pooled, and we're in a really good spot right now. So that drop in workers' comp really made up for the differences in increases elsewhere. So this, we'll finalize numbers and bring back the recommendations, but we will stay with all insurance carriers this year. If we have a better property year, ideally within the next 2 years, we'd actually go out to bid fully and have our broker bid everything out. As of right now, we're just renewing with our current carriers.
How far out do we have to get before we're desirable to look at from these claims?
We probably have to have a year or two of very
Oh, to get
minimal
more than a year,
losses.
yeah.
Does any of this change with the closure of the 2 schools?
This factors that in.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it factors in the new building. We've been working with EMC, with all of our builders' risk insurance and all of that, so they're factoring in any of our new projects. The one thing I will say, so there's different companies within each of these, but EMC is our primary for property. We have also signed on for workers' comp with them. So the fact that our workers' comp does well, even though our property isn't, is what's keeping them competitive with us.
Do they rebate on workers' comp?
Yes. Let me just check my email because we just got that information.
Not the audit, so they'll audit, I understand that, so that, this is all
You're talking
theoretical.
about the dividend?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right now we're looking at a 23% dividend.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So I think.
I'm assuming that's not factored into these rates
That's not
either.
factored into the rates, correct.
All right, any other questions? What do you need from us on this? You can bring it back?
Nothing at this point. I'll bring back final information for approval on the 18th.
Okay. Now, EMC is the actual insurance carrier? Do we go through a broker on this or?
M3 is the broker.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, moving on to item 11C, 2018-19 food service fees.
So we are bringing forward, every year we bring forward the equity and meal pricing calculator, and we always talk about how we roll money into fund balance, yet we have to keep increasing our prices. At this time, there is an exemption that was put out this year through the USDA that says if we on January 1st of this year had a positive fund balance, we could sign for a waiver and not have to increase fees. Because we obviously made money in the past, and if we're increasing fees, it's just going to make us more money unless we're having a rough year. So we are recommending at this time that we apply for the waiver, which I would do by May 31st, and then we would keep lunch rates the same as they are this year. So there's no approval needed at this point. We'll bring that back for approval approval, but I just wanted to let you know that at this time, we're just not looking at increasing rates. It's not necessary based on how we're running right now. We're running really well with food service, and we anticipate that in moving into the future. We also talked about pulling out of the lunch program at the middle schools, but with the transition of schools next year and everything else going on, we're going to hold off for one more year. We do have to do a full bid as required by state law for the 19-20 years, so we'll be going out for bid next year anyway, so we can always factor that into our bid process if that's something we want to move forward with.
Questions? 11D, food service dishwasher purchase.
So the last food service item that I have, so our high school dishwasher is old. It's on its last leg. That we've put a lot of money into repairs over the last couple of years. There is a Band-Aid repair in it, from what I understand, that will really only hold to the end of the year. If you remember, we did roll just under, I want to say $90,000 into fund balance last year into our food service. That fund balance can only be used to support the food service program with equipment and infrastructure. So this is an opportunity for us to use some of that fund balance to support a new dishwasher. We currently have $495,000 in fund balance, and we are requesting the use of $66,000 and having the, I'm not going to know how to pronounce it, Kesnich, thank you, dishwasher purchase for the upcoming year.
Could food service use a fence around?
There's a fence. Well, could we put something in? Could have a cafeteria outside, a concession area.
Julie, just out of curiosity, what the food service fund balance, what can that be used for? Just for food preparation?
Infrastructure for food. I mean, you could use it operationally. You don't want to though, but really it should be a support infrastructure. So as your machinery, your ovens, your dishwashers, any of that equipment, even cafeteria tables, as those go, you should be replacing and keeping that up as much as possible.
So anything basically within the cafeteria area, we could kind of
Should that possibly be used for, let's say, a salad bar in first grade if they wanted?
The actual bar itself, yes.
Yes.
Or a truck if it's just used for food service. I mean, something like a delivery truck.
Not a food truck, like a taco truck.
So again,
A
don't need
concession
a.
stand?
Don't-
Yeah.
There you go. The food
Servants
service
meeting
for
up.
their concession stand.
I do know that there's been a lot of parents that have voiced their opinion about wanting to get a salad bar at the high school and have that available to the students, so if they had a help.
It is, there is one.
I
It's
think-
almost like Subway when you go.
Yeah.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you
Is
can
there
get,
a lot of options, or?
Yeah, there's plenty. We have chicken and all sorts of different things you can get. I know there's, we provide like the little ones, and then there's like a big salad bar. So there's like a little, I can't think of the name of the type of salad right now. Then we also have a big salad line. So we have like two different options.
You have to come to lunch for
I guess
homecoming.
so. Because there's one person in particular that has emailed me 3 times about it.
oh, tell them to stop in.
I think
For
I
real,
will.
because we went there, I was shocked actually, because I didn't realize we had it. They have spinach, they have tomatoes, it's
Okay,
just
I
like going to
definitely
Subway and
like
getting a
to
salad or a
email
wrap.
her tonight And tell her to partake in lunch.
Your child will be mortified, but.
Yeah.
Because we've all done this to our children. Where we sit at lunch. So typically at homecoming for you two, the homecoming week for the pep rally, we'll have lunch there, and then we go to the pep rally, and if you have children in the school, you get to mortify them because
Yes.
all their friends will come up and talk to you, but your child will not.
I've enjoyed it for 4 years. It's been wonderful.
Little did I know.
We always feel like we're taking somebody's seat.
Yeah, that's like because we're radioactive. Everybody walks around us.
They're right in the middle.
That was so funny.
Yeah, because they're like, oh,
That-
people here.
From above, you watch, everybody just walks around us. It's like this big, and
You're like
you
oil and
confuse the
water.
whole setup, the seating arrangement's all messed up because we're sitting there and it's funny.
So we will bring this forward for action at the next meeting.
These aren't the same as Kenmore, are they?
No.
Can't we just get like 15 of those?
I don't know if we have the space.
All right, moving on to 11E, consolidation of student activity funds for TC, CM, ME, and MD.
So this is more of just a formal approval from the board based on our auditor's recommendation. Because student activity funds are funds raised by fundraisers and donations and things of that sort, it should be a formal approval that when we combine funds, it's done purposefully and not just because one person at district office says it's the right thing to do. And so we did, thank you, Jeff, for providing the details of the percentages of students who are going to be at the individual schools. The PTOs, my understanding is they did have conversation about the funds being merged. And so the recommendation is just that we agree from a board's perspective that you're approving the combining of the student activity funds for TC and CM and then ME and MV.
Rick, I'm going to move to immediately
Move for immediate approval.
move for immediate approval.
I'll second.
Does anyone have any objections to acting on this right now? So we got to take 2 votes. One is on the immediate approval. So all those in favor of doing immediate approval, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, and then I need a motion to approve this as is.
So consolidation of student activity funds for Test Corners, Country Meadows, and Muskego Elementary and Mill Valley,
As presented.
as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on this?
I'm sorry, Chris, you were...
I was reading it, but...
You were reading, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Ms. Boyer. Discussion, any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That saved us 10 minutes next meeting.
Yep. That was good.
Probably a half hour of staff time. So, all right. Item 12, information follow-up. Any information that anyone needs brought back? Otherwise, there's items there for your perusal. Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We adjourned at 9 p.m. Thank you.
Yay.